You know, I was in my garden the other day, and I noticed something that absolutely fascinated me. There was a beautiful plant I had nurtured for months, healthy and green and thriving, but right next to it I saw a weed starting to grow. It was small, barely noticeable, and I thought to myself, I'll pull that out tomorrow. It's tiny, it's not bothering anything. But you know what happened. I got busy. Tomorrow became next week, and by the time I returned to that spot in my garden, that tiny weed had grown enormous. Its roots had spread deep into the soil. It was now choking my beautiful plant, stealing its nutrients, blocking its sunlight. What was once a 5-second job to pull out a small weed had now become a 30-min. It struggled to dig out deeply entrenched roots. And even after I removed it, the damage to my plant was done. It took weeks for my plant to recover, and as I was digging out that weed, sweating and struggling, I realized something profound. Negative thoughts are exactly like weeds in a garden. When they first appear, they're small, easy to dismiss, easy to ignore. It's just one negative thought. It's not a big deal. I'll deal with it later. But you know what happens when you ignore a negative thought. It doesn't just sit there harmlessly. It grows, it spreads roots, it multiplies. One negative thought becomes 10, 10 become 100, 100 become a pattern becomes your default way of thinking. And before you know it, your mental garden, which should be full of beautiful, positive, life-giving thoughts, is completely overrun with weeds of negativity. And just like in my physical garden, the longer you wait to address these negative thoughts, the harder they are to remove. A small negative thought you could have dismissed in seconds becomes a deep-rooted belief system that takes months or years to overcome. I meet so many people whose lives are being strangled by negative thinking. Their dreams are dying because negative thoughts tell them they're not good enough. Their relationships are suffering because negative thoughts create suspicion and insecurity. Their health is declining because negative thoughts generate stress and anxiety. Their potential is unrealized because negative thoughts convince them to quit before they even start. And when I ask them, when did this negative thinking start? They often can't remember because it started small, with one thought, one doubt, one criticism, one comparison, one fear, and they ignored it, they let it grow, they allowed it to spread, and now it has taken over their entire mental garden. But here's the good news. Just like weeds can be removed from a garden, negative thoughts can be eliminated from your mind. Just like a garden can be restored to health and beauty, your thinking patterns can be transformed. Just like new plants can grow where weeds once dominated, positive thoughts can flourish where negativity once reigned. But it requires something. It requires you to stop ignoring the problem. It requires you to recognize negative thoughts for the destructive weeds they are. It requires you to learn the techniques to pull them out by the roots. And most importantly, it requires you to plant something better in their place. Because here's what most people don't understand about killing negative thinking. You can't just remove negativity and leave empty space. Nature abhors a vacuum. Your mind abhors a vacuum. If you remove negative thoughts, but don't replace them with positive thoughts, negative thoughts will simply grow back. Just like pulling weeds but not planting anything good means weeds will return. Today, I want to share with you exactly how to kill negative thinking, not just suppress it, not just ignore it, not just cope with it, but actually kill it at the root and replace it with thinking patterns that will transform your life. So let me ask you, are you ready to clear the weeds from your mental garden? Are you ready to finally take control of the thoughts that have been controlling you? Good. Then let's begin this transformation together. My dear friends, thank you so much for being here with minds ready to change and hearts willing to grow. Before we dive into how to kill negative thinking, I want to make something very clear. When I say kill negative thinking, I'm not suggesting that you should never have another negative thought in your life. I'm not saying you should become some artificially positive person who pretends everything is wonderful even when it's not. That's not realistic and it's not healthy. What I'm talking about is killing the habit of negative thinking, the pattern, the default, the automatic loop of negativity that plays in your mind like a broken record. Let me explain the difference with a story. There was once a farmer who had 2 dogs. One dog was named Hope. The other was named Fear. Every evening, these 2 dogs would fight. Sometimes Hope would win. Sometimes Fear would win. The farmer's neighbor, watching this nightly battle, asked him, "Which dog usually wins?" The farmer thought for a moment and replied, "The one I feed the most." This simple story reveals a profound truth. We all have positive thoughts and negative thoughts. We all have hope and fear. We all have optimism and pessimism. Both exist in everyone's mind. The question is not whether you'll ever have negative thoughts. The question is, which thoughts are you feeding? Which thoughts are you giving your attention to? Which thoughts are you strengthening through repetition? Most people are unconsciously feeding their negative thoughts. They replay worst-case scenarios, they rehearse past failures, they imagine future disasters, they criticize themselves constantly, they compare themselves unfavorably to others, they focus on what's wrong rather than what's right. And then they wonder why negativity dominates their mind. They wonder why they feel anxious, depressed, stressed, overwhelmed. They wonder why they can't seem to achieve their goals or enjoy their lives. The answer is simple. You've been feeding fear instead of hope. You've been watering weeds instead of flowers. You've been strengthening negative thought patterns through constant attention while neglecting positive ones. Now, I want to share something from my own journey. There was a time in my life when I was completely dominated by negative thinking. I would wake up in the morning and my first thoughts were worries about the day ahead. I would replay conversations, analyzing everything I said wrong. I would catastrophize about the future, imagining all the ways things could go badly. I would compare myself to others and always come up short. And I was miserable, absolutely miserable, not because my circumstances were terrible. Actually, objectively, my life was pretty good, but my negative thinking made everything feel terrible. It was like wearing dark sunglasses that made the whole world look dim and hopeless. Then someone asked me a question that changed everything. They said, "Gaur Gopal, if someone followed you around all day criticizing you, putting you down, telling you that you'll fail, predicting disasters, focusing on everything wrong, would you keep that person in your life?" I immediately said, "Of course not. Who would tolerate that?" They replied, "Then why are you tolerating it from yourself? Because that's exactly what your negative thinking is doing. You're following yourself around all day with criticism, doubt, fear, and negativity. You wouldn't accept this from anyone else, but you accept it from your own mind." That moment was a revelation. I realized I had been my own worst enemy. My negative thinking was not protecting me or helping me, it was destroying me, and that's when I committed to killing negative thinking and cultivating positive thinking instead. And I want to be honest with you, it wasn't easy, it wasn't instant, it wasn't like flipping a switch. Negative thinking patterns that have been strengthened for years or decades don't disappear overnight. But with consistent practice, with the right techniques, with patient persistence, it is absolutely possible. And the transformation in my life has been nothing short of miraculous. Not because my external circumstances changed dramatically, but because my internal experience changed completely. Now, let's talk about the real problem. Why is negative thinking so common? Why do so many people struggle with this? What makes negative thoughts so powerful and persistent? The first major problem is evolutionary wiring. Our brains evolved in an environment where threats were real and immediate. A rustle in the bushes could be a predator. A strange food could be poisonous. Trusting the wrong person could be deadly. So our ancestors who survived were the ones who were constantly vigilant for threats, who assumed the worst, who focused on dangers. Their brains developed what psychologists call a negativity bias. We notice negative things more than positive things. We remember negative experiences more vividly than positive ones. We give more weight to negative information than positive information. This was useful when we were being chased by predators, but in our modern world, where most of us aren't facing life or death threats daily, this negativity bias doesn't serve us. It just makes us anxious, stressed, and focused on problems that aren't actually threatening our survival. But this wiring is still there, operating in the background, making negative thinking our default. The second problem is conditioning from childhood. Many of us grew up in environments where negative thinking was modeled and reinforced. Maybe your parents were constant worriers, always anticipating disasters. Maybe your teachers focused more on your mistakes than your successes. Maybe your culture emphasized suffering and struggle as virtuous. Maybe your family bonded through complaining and criticism. Whatever the specific conditioning, many of us learned negative thinking patterns very young. And these patterns became so automatic, so ingrained, that we don't even recognize them as learned behaviors. We think, this is just how I am. This is just how my mind works. But it's not. It's just how your mind was trained to work. The third problem is that negative thinking provides short-term emotional benefits. This sounds counterintuitive, but it's true. Negative thinking can make you feel smart and realistic. When you predict disasters that don't happen, you feel relieved and validated. When you criticize yourself before others can, you feel protected from external criticism. When you focus on problems, you feel productive even if you're not solving anything. When you expect the worst, you avoid the pain of disappointment. These short-term emotional payoffs make negative thinking addictive. Your brain keeps returning to it because it provides immediate psychological relief, even though it creates long-term suffering. The fourth problem is social reinforcement. In many social contexts, negativity is rewarded. If you're in a group and someone shares good news, responding with warnings about what could go wrong makes you seem wise and cautious. Complaining bonds people. Gossiping creates connection. Cynicism is often confused with intelligence. If you're positive and optimistic, you might be dismissed as naive or unrealistic. But if you're negative and pessimistic, you might be seen as sophisticated and aware. This social reinforcement makes it very difficult to break free from negative thinking patterns. The fifth problem is mental rumination. This is the tendency to replay negative thoughts over and over, like a song stuck on repeat. Something happens, you have a negative thought about it, and then you can't stop thinking about it. You analyze it from every angle. You imagine different scenarios. You create entire narratives. And each time you replay that negative thought, you strengthen the neural pathway. You make it more automatic. You make it more powerful. It's like walking the same path through a forest over and over until it becomes a deep groove that you automatically fall into. Finally, there's the problem of identifying with your thoughts. Most people believe they are their thoughts. If they think I'm not good enough, they believe they are not good enough. If they think this is hopeless, they believe it is hopeless. This identification makes negative thoughts incredibly powerful. Because if you think you are your thoughts, how can you change them? How can you argue with yourself? How can you challenge what feels like your fundamental nature, You're trapped. So what's the solution? How do we actually kill negative thinking at the root? Let me share with you a powerful, comprehensive framework that addresses all these challenges. The first solution is awareness and separation. You must learn to observe your thoughts rather than identify with them. This is the foundation of everything. When a negative thought arises, instead of believing it and being swept away by it, you create a slight distance. You notice, oh, there's a negative thought. You observe it like you would observe a cloud passing in the sky. The sky doesn't grab onto clouds. The sky doesn't become the clouds. The sky simply allows them to pass through. You need to become like the sky, not the clouds, not the thoughts, but the awareness in which thoughts arise and pass. How do you practice this? Through mindfulness, through meditation, through simply pausing when you notice a negative thought and saying to yourself, I'm having the thought that. Instead of I'm not good enough, you observe, I'm having the thought that I'm not good enough. This small shift creates enormous change, because once you separate yourself from your thoughts, you can evaluate them, you can question them, you can choose whether to believe them or let them pass. The second solution is the challenging technique. Once you've created distance from a negative thought, you can challenge it, ask questions. Is this thought actually true? What evidence do I have for this thought? What evidence contradicts this thought? Is this thought helping me or harming me? Would I say this to a friend? Most negative thoughts, when challenged, fall apart because they're not based on reality. They're based on fear, conditioning, distortion. For example, the thought I always fail is easily challenged. Have you literally failed at everything you've ever attempted? Of course not. The thought is a distortion. Challenging it reveals the truth. The third solution is the replacement technique. Remember, you can't just remove negative thoughts and leave empty space. You must replace them with positive alternatives. When you catch a negative thought, immediately replace it with a positive one. Not a fake positive thought, not pretending, but a realistic, helpful, empowering thought. Negative thought, I'm going to fail at this. A replacement, I'm going to give this my best effort and learn from whatever happens. Negative thought, everyone thinks I'm stupid. Replacement, I don't know what everyone thinks, but I'm doing my best and that's enough. Negative thought, this will never work. Replacement, I don't know if this will work, but I'm willing to try and see what happens. The replacement must be believable to you, otherwise your mind will reject it. But it should be more helpful, more empowering, more realistic than the negative thought. The fourth solution is the gratitude practice. This is one of the most powerful techniques for killing negative thinking. Gratitude and negativity cannot coexist in the same moment. When you're genuinely feeling grateful, you cannot simultaneously be consumed by negative thoughts. So cultivate a daily gratitude practice. Every morning or evening, write down 3 specific things you're grateful for. Not generic things, specific moments, people, experiences from that day. This trains your brain to look for the positive. It creates new neural pathways focused on appreciation rather than criticism. Over time, gratitude becomes your default rather than negativity. The fifth solution is physical intervention. Negative thinking is not just mental. It affects your body, and interestingly, changing your body can change your thoughts. When you notice negative thinking spiraling, do something physical. Take 10 deep breaths. Go for a walk, do some exercise. Dance, stretch, change your posture, stand up straight, smile, even if you don't feel like it. These physical actions interrupt the negative thought pattern and shift your mental state. It's like pressing the reset button on your mind. Now, my dear friends, I want to give you very specific, practical tools you can implement immediately to kill negative thinking and replace it with positive, empowering thoughts. First practice, starting today, I want you to create what I call your thought observation journal. For the next 7 days, I want you to become aware of your negative thoughts, not to judge them, not to feel bad about them, but simply to notice them. Every time you catch a negative thought, write it down, just the thought and the time it occurred. At the end of 7 days, review your journal. You'll likely notice patterns. Maybe your negative thoughts are strongest in the morning. Maybe they're triggered by certain people or situations. Maybe they follow certain themes. This awareness is the first step in killing negative thinking. You cannot change what you're not aware of. Second, implement the 3-question challenge. Every time you notice a negative thought, ask it 3 questions. Is this thought absolutely true? What evidence supports this thought, and what evidence contradicts it? Is this thought helping me or harming me? Write down the answers. Most of the time, you'll discover the thought is not completely true. The evidence against it is stronger than the evidence for it, and it's definitely harming you. This logical analysis weakens the power of negative thoughts. Third, create your positive replacement library. This is a list of positive, empowering thoughts that you can use to replace common negative thoughts. For each negative thought pattern you identified in your journal, write a realistic positive replacement. Keep this list on your phone or in a notebook. When a negative thought arises, consult your library and consciously replace it. Over time, these replacements will become automatic. You won't need the list anymore because the positive thoughts will be your new default. Fourth, practice gratitude intervals throughout your day. Set 3 alarms on your phone for morning, afternoon, and evening. When each alarm goes off, stop whatever you're doing and list 3 things you're grateful for in that moment. They can be tiny things: the sun on your face, the ability to breathe, a comfortable chair. The point is to interrupt negative thinking patterns with gratitude multiple times per day. Fifth, implement the negative thought funeral. This is a powerful symbolic practice. Write down your most persistent negative thoughts on pieces of paper. Read each one out loud. Acknowledge the pain it has caused you. Then ceremonially destroy them. You can burn them safely, tear them up, bury them in your garden. As you do this, say out loud, I am killing this thought. It no longer has power over me. I am choosing something better. This symbolic act creates a psychological shift. It makes the decision to kill negative thinking concrete and memorable. Sixth, create a positive environment. Surround yourself with positivity. Listen to uplifting music. Read inspiring books. Watch content that makes you feel good. Spend time with positive people. Put encouraging quotes where you'll see them. Fill your environment with reminders of beauty, possibility, and hope. Your environment influences your thinking more than you realize. A positive environment supports positive thinking. Seventh, practice thought interruption techniques. When you notice negative thinking spiraling, interrupt it immediately with a physical action. Clap your hands loudly. Stand up and do 10 jumping jacks. Splash cold water on your face. Shout stop, out loud if you're alone. These dramatic interruptions break the negative thought pattern and give you space to choose a different thought. Finally, find an accountability partner who will support you in killing negative thinking. Share with them your commitment. Give them permission to lovingly point out when they hear you engaging in negative thinking. Check in with them weekly to report on your progress. Having support makes this journey much easier. My dear friends, as we come toward the end of our time together, I want to share one final story that I hope will inspire you on this journey. There was once a village that was plagued by a terrible problem. Every year, poisonous snakes would come and bite the villagers. Many people died. Many more lived in constant fear. The villagers tried everything. They built walls, but snakes found ways through. They set traps, but there were too many snakes. They killed the snakes they found, but more kept coming. Finally, a wise healer came to the village and said, "Your problem is not the snakes. Your problem is what's attracting the snakes. You have piles of garbage everywhere. You have stagnant water. You have dark, cluttered spaces. You've created the perfect environment for snakes. If you want to get rid of the snakes, don't just kill the snakes you see. Clean up your village, remove the garbage, drain the stagnant water, let in light and air, create an environment where snakes don't want to live." The villagers followed this advice. They cleaned their village, they removed everything that attracted snakes, they created a clean, healthy, beautiful environment, and you know what happened? The snakes left. They didn't have to hunt down every single snake. Once they changed the environment, the snakes naturally went elsewhere. My friends, negative thoughts are like those poisonous snakes. You can try to kill each negative thought as it appears, but if you haven't changed the environment of your mind, more will keep coming. The solution is not just to fight negative thoughts. The solution is to create a mental environment where negative thoughts don't thrive. And you do that by filling your mind with positive inputs, by practicing gratitude daily, by challenging negative thoughts and replacing them with positive ones, by surrounding yourself with positivity, by feeding hope instead of fear. When you create this positive mental environment, negative thoughts don't disappear completely, but they lose their power. They become occasional visitors rather than permanent residents. They pass through rather than taking root. I know this journey is not easy. I know negative thinking patterns can be deeply entrenched. I know there will be days when you feel like you're making no progress at all. But I want you to remember something. Every time you challenge a negative thought, you weaken it. Every time you replace negativity with positivity, you strengthen the positive pathway. Every time you practice gratitude, you train your brain toward appreciation. Every small action matters. Every conscious choice counts. You're not trying to be perfect. You're trying to shift the balance. You're trying to feed hope more than fear. You're trying to water flowers more than weeds. And if you do this consistently, patiently, persistently, you will transform your mental garden. You will kill negative thinking not by fighting against it constantly, but by creating an environment where positivity thrives. I also want you to understand something crucial. Killing negative thinking is not about becoming unrealistic. It's not about ignoring real problems. It's not about pretending everything is fine when it's not. You can be realistic and still positive. You can acknowledge challenges while still believing in solutions. You can face difficulties while still maintaining hope. Positive thinking doesn't mean naive thinking. It means empowered thinking. It means focusing on what you can control rather than what you can't. It means looking for possibilities rather than just problems. It means believing in your capacity to handle whatever comes rather than catastrophizing about the future. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here today, for being willing to examine your thinking patterns, for being brave enough to commit to change. Remember the garden. Those weeds started small, but they grew because they were ignored. Don't ignore your negative thoughts. Notice them, challenge them, replace them, and plant something better. Remember the two dogs, hope and fear, both exist in you. The one that dominates is the one you feed. Choose wisely what you give your attention to. Remember the village and the snakes. Don't just fight symptoms. Change the environment. Create a mental space where negativity doesn't thrive and positivity flourishes. Go forward with awareness. Go forward with commitment. Go forward with the understanding that your thoughts create your reality, and when you change your thoughts, you change your life. Kill negative thinking not through suppression, but through transformation. Not through force, but through conscious choice. Not through denial, but through replacement. And watch as your mental garden, once overrun with weeds, becomes a beautiful space filled with flowers of possibility, hope, gratitude, and joy. Thank you, and may you discover the peace and power that comes from mastering your thoughts.